After having read more than 100 plus resumes, I realized the single most important thing to have in your resume is if you have to write a resume right now and you're like, oh, I don't even know what a resume means. Don't worry, that was me too when I had to write my first resume. Today I'm going to teach you every single thing you need to know of how to write your own resume using examples from my resume, which I'm kind of embarrassed to show because it's quite bad, but I want you to learn from my mistakes. Before we really go into the step-by-step of how to exactly write your first resume, I want you to keep this in mind. KISS, keep it short and simple, which I'm not realizing spells out to you KISAS, but just pretend it's KISS. So every single thing you write in your resume, remember this acronym. You're gonna keep everything short, simple, concise, straight to the point. I've made a really easy to follow template for how to make your own resume. I personally use this format for every single resume I make. At the very top, you're gonna have your basic information. That means your full name, your phone number, and your email address. Now the reason you need this is because people need to know how to find you. If they want to talk to you, they want to give you a job, they want to give you a scholarship, whatever you're using this resume for and whoever you are sending it to, they need to have a way to contact you. When you make your first email, like it's a very embarrassing name. I think mine was cutiepie99@gmail.com. So if your email address is in the same boat as mine, do not use it. Make a more professional sounding email using your full name. You don't want your resume to look really professional and suddenly there's cutiepie99@gmail.com over there. Next is a 1 to 2 sentence max about me statement, which really explains who you are and what you're working towards. Think of the about me statement as the frame or the lens you want the reader to use to read the rest of your resume after this part. So let's say if I say, I am interested in public policy, my reader's gonna know that, okay, this person's interested in public policy. That's the lens that they're gonna use to evaluate me. So you can see here in my old resume, I put 3 very generic sounding skills which can be applied to anybody. Literally anybody. Do not do that. We're gonna change it up to this about me statement of who I am, what I'm working towards, really giving you a clue of, okay, Emily wants to be in public policy, she's interested in women's rights, she's interested in education. So here you're gonna put what school you attended, where was the school located, how long do you attend the school, any sort of certifications or programs that you did. And you're gonna put this in reverse chronological order, which really just means you put the most recent one first. You don't have to put your entire schooling history, no one's gonna want to read that. I would do maximum 2 schools, whether that's middle school, high school, or even just high school or secondary school. There's also a really good place to put what kind of competitions you joined in school, any special certification. Now, I know what you might be thinking for this part, like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a real job. I have nothing to put here. Get that out of your mind. That is not true at all. Any experience really counts, whether that's a personal project, volunteering work, a club you join in school, your extracurriculars, those mean the same thing. Anything where you've had a meaningful experience and made a meaningful contribution really counts. After having read more than 100 plus resumes, I realized the single most important thing to have in your resume is what value, impact, what results you created for whatever you were doing. So for this part, you put the organization you did it under, again how long you were there, in reverse chronological order with the most present first, where was this located, what was your role. I recommend 3 bullet points maximum to showcase what you did. You can see my old resume, this is a huge chunk of text that's just so hard to read. So to improve that, we're gonna put it in bullet points. We're gonna divide it into number 1, okay, this is what my organization does. Number 2, this is the results that we had. And then number 3, we joined this competition and this is what place we won. So compare these 2 side by side and see how much easier it is to read with the bullet points compared to having that big chunk of text. If you're feeling stuck on how to write the bullet points for your experiences, a simple formula I like to use is I did X action leading to Y outcome or impact or result. So the experiences part is not where you describe what you did. Yes, that's a part of it, but really the main point here is to explain what value you brought to whatever you were doing. So see how I've applied it here. The action I did was collect 2,500 books. If I just stop there, it's like, okay, what do you use the books for? Who do you give them to? Like, what's really happening here? I need to go one step further and show what was the impact from it. So I collected all these books, and then the impact that I had was to help build 5 libraries in underprivileged communities for 350 plus people. Yes, it is the ideal situation where you can always show your impact of whatever it is that you did, but I understand that that's not always the case. I have this one thing where I was student ambassador for a one-day event that my school had. There wasn't really any impact to anything like that. So what you can do instead is emphasize these skills that you used in this situation. So instead of just putting, okay, I talked to visitors and answered questions they had about the school, we can switch it up to, okay, I leveraged my multicultural communication skills, because the tours were not just in English, to engage with visitors and answer questions they had. So see how I emphasized my communication skills in a very, very explicit way here. For the overall experiences section, I would suggest maximum 5 experiences. Any more than that, you're not going to be able to fit it into one page. The additional information part is pretty straightforward. Just put what kind of languages you speak and how fluent you are in them. If you only speak one language, it's fine to just remove this section. You can also put what kind of concrete or technical skills you have. For example, I have a Microsoft Office certification that my dad forced me to do when I was a kid, when I hated it. But now it's very useful, so thank you, Dad. And I'm also able to use Adobe software like Photoshop, like Premiere Pro. So I put that there too. And at the very end, this is optional, but if you have space, it's great to put, which is your interests and your hobbies. No one's going to evaluate you on your hobbies and interests, but this is more of adding a flavor of personality to your resume. And it's a good conversation starter if your reader happens to have the same interests that you do. If you don't have the space to fit it and make it one page, I would just cut it out completely. Common mistakes to avoid when you are making your first resume. Now, I've seen this happen over and over again, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes. So listen up very closely for this part. Number 1 is not quantifying your experience and your impact. It's not good enough to say, oh, I sold a lot of tickets as part of this, but how much is a lot? Whether that's 200 or 50,000, you really have to put the numbers to showcase the impact you created and the results you achieved by what you did. Some key categories to quantify your impact are number 1, money, like how much money you earned or how much money you saved. Next is time, whether that's how quick you were able to do something or how little time you had to do something but you're still able to pull it off anyway. Do not be shy because you're afraid of coming across as really arrogant or look like you're trying to brag. Now is not the time to be shy. You have to come across as really confident and assertive and really, really promote yourself. A simple trick is to use very strong language. Here are a list, and there are so many of these lists floating around the internet of very strong action verbs you can use to start your sentences. Do not use a fancy template just because it looks pretty or looks very aesthetic. Big no. I know it's Canva and there's some beautiful templates on Canva, but unless you're more of a creative person and you're using this resume for more creative things, the aesthetics or the looks of your resume really doesn't matter at all. As someone who has evaluated resumes before, I don't care how pretty your font is or how beautiful your resume looks, or even how you look like. I don't understand this trend of putting your photo on your resume. You don't have a picture. This is not a beauty contest. What I'm looking out for as a reader is what you've done, what kind of experiences you had, what kind of impact. I know I've repeated this word so many times today. What kind of impact you have created with whatever you have done. Like, look at my first resume. I used this very nice looking Google Doc template, but look at that giant space on the side. There's so much wasted space and everything is just so hard to read. Do not have really inconsistent or messy formatting because that just ruins the whole first impression that you give someone when you're reading your resume. I'm gonna show you an embarrassing example from my first resume. Pause the video, see if you can see the very glaringly bad formatting mistake that I made. Why is there just one big chunk of space in the middle that's very obviously different size from the other chunks? Like, if I look at this resume with a fresh pair of eyes, the first thing I'm gonna see is like, oh, that big chunk. And things like that really just ruin the impression of your resume in the reader's minds. And you don't want to give anyone any silly reason to throw your resume into the reject pile. So we've written your resume, but we are not done yet, so sit back down. What you need to do is proofread. I highly recommend sending it to someone else to read, because probably by this point you've written it, you've stared at it for so long, and it's really hard to catch your own mistakes. So send it to someone you trust, whether that's your friend, your mom, whoever, someone you trust to read this through. Ask them to proofread for spelling errors, how clear everything is, whether that's anything you can improve on, whether everything makes sense. And now you're ready to send off your first resume. Woohoo! All the best for whatever you're using this for. Come back to the comments and let me know how everything goes. I am rooting for you. You've got this. Bye!